I just see thousands of birds out there.
What are the birds telling us about mud? Why are they here in huge numbers when there's mud everywhere?
This mud sucks you in.
Ugh. When they all lift off, it's like a cloud just forms. If this mud flat wasn't here and it wasn't in this condition, then the birds wouldn't be here.
There's the sounds that you can hear over the mud. So you can hear the distant rail yards and the port, and you can hear birds, and you can hear very far away traffic from Vancouver that's only 20 kilometers away, but might be 2,000 miles. You're just completely alone on this large flat expanse of mud. It's just perfectly isolated, and it's quite magical. I came down here one spring and I was completely blown away by the hundreds of thousands of migrating shorebirds. So some more coming in now. From the other side of the bay, we're being swarmed by them. They're flying off, landing near us. Beautiful, you could just hear their noise. The western sandpipers are migrating this time of year from their overwintering grounds in Central and South America up to their breeding grounds in Alaska. This is one of the few stopover sites that they migrate through on that spring migration. We can estimate that every one of that species stops here at some time in their life cycle. I spent many, many hours out on Roberts Bank just watching western sandpipers, realizing that we had a huge enigma here. I was watching all these birds pecking at the ground very fast, obviously feeding on something, and I thought, well, let's look at what they eat. I remember going up to Simon Fraser University one day with a senior ornithologist professor was there. He said, well, Elna, have you decided what you're going to work on? And I said, yes, Prof. I'm going to work on sandpipers. And he said, oh, that's interesting. What particular question? And I said, their diet. He looked at me and very surreptitiously leaned down behind his desk and pulled up a large textbook and threw it at me. And he said, Elna, everybody knows what they eat. Why are you wasting time? I left somewhat chagrined about that encounter, but nevertheless, I persevered. If you read the literature up until a few years ago, the diet of shorebirds is described almost exclusively as small marine invertebrates. That was the knowledge. It was felt to be definitive, and there was the end of story. I spent hours and hours watching, and things didn't add up. And so you remove a bit of the mudflat, and it's completely black. It's got no oxygen in it, and the only things living in there, apart from animals that live in tubes, are basically bacteria. And it's sulfurous and quite nasty. It's completely devoid of almost any visible invertebrate food for birds.
Okay, so text me when you're ready for pickup.
Of course.
All right.
I've got everything.
Have fun.
All right.
Say hi to the birds.
I love shorebirds, but I really love watching them and taking photos of them because they're just so interesting and how they move and how they live. Some of them have these big, long migrations, even though they're just tiny birds. So it's really incredible to think about that, along with their behaviors when they're migrating. They're so focused, they don't even notice you. That's really exciting to see they're back. I'm so happy, because I was thinking, oh my, they might just not come back this year. They may not be here, but there they are.
I am not really a birder. I notice birds and I appreciate them, but I've always been focused on looking down my whole life. I noticed today that there are all these birders, binoculars, and they're focused on the birds, whereas I'm over here focused on the ocean.
Many people come here and just go to the ocean side because it's the ocean.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting when they get to come and see the lagoon side, which is a really incredible place, and it's so jam-packed full of birds. I've been coming to Esquimalt Lagoon to bird for probably about 2 or 3 years. This is a good time to come here just because of the shorebirds, but it's also impressive to come in winter because of all the waterfowl.
But you have been birding for longer than 2 or 3 years.
I've been birding for just about 7.5 years.
And how old are you?
I'm 14 years old, so just about half of my life.
How Adam got started in birding is a bit of a mystery. He's always had an interest in the natural worlds, even when he was really, really small. If he was crying or fussing, the best thing to do was just take him outside and show him plants, and he would calm down. My first memory of him showing a kind of affinity for birding was when he was about 6 years old. Not long after that, my wife set up for him to go for a bird walk near here. That just sort of got Adam really fired up. He increasingly got interested. He wanted to go out birding. He started to take pictures of them. So he saved up all the money to buy a camera and then buy this enormous lens, and it's just kind of rolled from there.
What was it about birds specifically that hooked you? I love nature too, but I wasn't hooked on birds when I was 7.
Birds are very special because they're everywhere. No matter if you're just walking in downtown, if you're in the middle of nowhere in the woods, there are birds there. So there's just a group of about 4 least sandpipers here.
Yeah.
And they're running along the shoreline, but as soon as they stop, they disappear because they're so well camouflaged.
If you hadn't pointed them out, I wouldn't even have seen them.
The least sandpipers tend to stay in smaller groups, especially on the island, since we don't have as much habitat. They're close relatives to western sandpipers. We just get a few of them here. At Roberts Bank, you get a lot more, many tens of thousands of more.
Adam did say that there are areas where you can see tens of thousands of sandpipers. And I would love to experience that because I haven't seen that before. What is it like to be amongst birds in a flock of that size?
Why are the birds here? What the heck are they eating? This is the main place, because this is the main place that seems to be nothing. That's when the great mystery began, saying, well, they're not acting as we think they ought to be acting in terms of their feeding. That has led to one of the most significant breakthroughs in ornithology over the last maybe 100 years. We looked inside the stomachs and they were virtually empty. This didn't make sense. These birds were meant to be feeding very heavily on invertebrates. All I could see in the stomachs was some sand particles and a fair amount of liquid. So the mystery deepened. You know they're doing something on the surface. Well, let's have a look at their mouth parts. Let's look inside the bill. I sent some of the birds over to France to my colleague who ran a very large electron microscope. The most interesting feature was the tongue, which was very, very hairy, like a mop. So what would a hairy-tongued sandpiper be doing on a mudflat with no prey? Looking at these electron microscopes, and there between the tongue hairs are diatoms. Diatoms are microscopic plants. 10 of them, length to length, would be the diameter of a human hair. They're part of what we call biofilm. So it seemed to be that the western sandpipers were feeding on biofilm. So biofilm is on the surface of the mud, and these microscopic plants, these diatoms, are cemented down to the mud surface by mucus they secrete. And we watched the birds putting their tongues down very, very quickly, tongues coated in mucus. Mucus sticks to mucus, bringing up a gob of mucus and bringing in diatoms into the digestive system. No other bird we know of feeds on biofilm. Very few types of birds have these hairy tongues.
I'm excited to see the mudflats.
Okay, well, let's go.
I fell in love with marine biology.
Yeah.
And I have this problem where I'm only looking down and I'm never looking up.
Yeah.
And I find birds hard to spot, hard to find, but creatures that are down in the ocean, they're there. So you can pick them up, you can interact with them.
But birds are, obviously, they come down to the earth, and that's what we see here in terms of the footprints.
I love these little footprints.
So they're up in the air and they're down on the ground, so they're an integrator.
Your research showed that on top of all this mud, kilometers and
Yeah.
kilometers of mud,
Yeah.
lies one of the most important
Yeah.
things when it comes to energy.
It looks like a desolate wasteland, hugely important because of one factor, biofilm, but not just biofilm, biofilm in this particular state that's producing fatty acids. Produced at this time of year only during this particular window between the beginning of the fresh ebb of the river and the tide, that pulse of fatty acids going into the food chain. So the birds taking it up into their own bodies, but also invertebrates grazing on it, those invertebrates being eaten by fish, the fish being eaten by seals and killer whales. So it's the basis of the fat in the whole estuarine system for major commercial fisheries, especially in British Columbia, such as crab and salmon. The fatty acids the birds bringing up in the biofilm, they can't get in any other way. They have to pick it up directly from biofilm, and those fatty acids enable them to migrate more efficiently on longer distances. They arrive at their breeding grounds in better physiological shape and better condition for breeding, so their nesting success is going to be better. They're going to produce more young, and the species is going to continue. It really talks to why these birds are here. Roberts Bank, it's the last remaining large intertidal mudflat in the whole estuary and the delta, which has not been compromised by having jetties and piers and other structures built on it or around it.
Roberts Bank, it's got the largest crabbing grounds that is readily available closest to us. This is historically our fishing and crabbing and our harvest grounds, not only just for crabs, but for other species as well. The estuary, it's like a living, breathing organism out there. It kind of works together to survive and protect. You see so much life out there that everything is kind of working as one.
Mud is not a wasteland. It's not disposable. It's hard to admire the beauty of it, but it's one of the most important ecosystems on the planet. It's the birds that have drawn our attention to mud, because otherwise, what do you look for? Most scientists aren't going to go and just look at mud because it's there. It's not much in it, doesn't seem to be very attractive, and it's not a pleasant place to work. But what's drawn us into it? The western sandpipers, and the birds mirroring what's happening under the surface and on the surface of the mud. If you look at the mud, you can see there's a gleam on it.
A gleam.
A gleam. So that's the biofilm layer. It's probably about 0.5 millimeter thick. That. Oh, let me get you a fresh bit.
Oh, yes.
You trying to...
You're such a gentleman. Thank you. This?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what I'm doing here. Am I supposed to?
Yeah, it has a slightly sort of Fishy taste.
Oceany.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Very
get
fresh,
that.
not gritty.
Delicious.
And
Best
very,
mud
very
I've ever
healthy.
tasted.
It's your omega-3s.
Oh, I can feel the energy already.
There you go. So that is fueling an entire species.
It just blows my mind because you can't see any of this.
I like to think of it as a metaphor. It's a magic carpet. You can't see it. It's there. And yet birds feeding on it are propelled thousands of kilometers. So
So
it's
biofilm is the sandpiper's magic carpet.
exactly.
Oh yeah, look, they're coming in now. Wow.
It's called a murmuration.
Murmuration.
And then, whoa, so it's like smoke.
It looks like an organism. It just reminds me so much of a school of fish. I'm always thinking about the ocean. But at the same time, we're all looking at the same thing. And this may be a totally foreign ecosystem to me, but I find it every bit as fascinating in many ways because everything's dependent on everything else.
So this is a western sandpiper that I think hit a wire, so it's unfortunately deceased. But you can see the buff feathers, that's breeding plumage. And this little bird weighs about probably 28 or so grams. And it's
Tiny.
flying thousands of kilometers.
Can I feel that, Bee?
Yeah,
Wow, that is so flexible.
yeah,
You can even see little kind of teeth almost.
yeah. So there's little teeth inside, which help the biofilm move up into the gut.
I wish I could see the hairy tongue. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, we're gonna see some stuff today, hopefully. So let's go. I would love to meet some anglers come out here and not fall. Really? You just gotta keep moving.
Okay, so this mud sucks you in. Adam, you're leaving me in the mud. I don't want to drag you in here. Okay, once again. Oh, oh my God. This is, there we go. Not pretty. This is not what I thought birding was about. Are all those birds over there on the water, or are they actually standing on?
They're standing on mud.
No way.
Yeah.
So look how far the tide has receded now. The amount of habitat that it's opened up is really striking. Is that like your dream, being totally surrounded, immersed?
I could sit here for multiple days without leaving.
Being here, it's so obvious that these sandpipers are inextricably linked to the land. And so if you want to continue to see these birds, you have to maintain their habitat.
Absolutely. If there's no habitat, there's no birds.
It is moving because you see the port right in front of us. You see the highway right there. We're watching trucks go by. This is actually a very small amount of space that these birds have. And yet even that is in peril.
The Fraser Port Authority had a vision to build a megaport out in front of what's called Delta Port to help expedite import-export to Asian market around the world. I struggle to understand how the new port is actually going to be a good thing for the Salish Sea.
The proposed Roberts Bank T2 development adds an additional great structure at the end of the existing structure. With the threats from the port development, this bank will be extinguished ecologically. There's no known way to recreate biofilm that's productive. And there's no equivalent area to this mudflat in the Fraser River estuary or delta. If it goes, that's the end of this as a major stopover. The birds will suffer very negative consequences. That species would be headed for extinction. There would be fewer birds migrating north each year to breed. There would be fewer birds returning each year, so the whole system would start to wind down. We've broken the link in the migration train between Grays Harbor to the Stickeen River. We've lengthened that by 300 kilometres. And we've reduced the bird's ability to actually make that distance.
This proposed port expansion is indicative of what's happening at so many places across the range of western sandpipers and other shorebird species. Shorebirds are among the most rapidly declining birds in North America. Many species have declined by as much as 90% in that period of time. So there's a real urgency to galvanize researchers and conservationists and people to help conserve these species that are in so much trouble.
I've had some unanswered questions about health concerns, noise pollution, air pollution, light pollution. Our way of life is just not going to be remotely the same. It's going to affect every species, everything that goes up the Fraser, down the Fraser.
The Biofilm shorebird story is very much a story of a battle, a struggle against an opposition that says this is safe to build this port, and the science saying it's actually not safe, it's actually quite dangerous. I'm determined that truth prevail in the end and people have a better understanding of what's on Roberts Bank, such that we can make realistic decisions that will conserve a whole species of birds and that whole ecosystem. So that's where we are at the moment with a project that's worth the billions, basically dependent on what that project is predicted to do to a diatom. We're fighting with science against forces which are good to destroy things. Other people are bringing in information now, so it's grown, and we've got all that evidence lined up, and it's very, very compelling. It's a battle of honor. It's steely resistance and fortitude. I feel very alive in this battle. So whether it's won or lost, I feel I've fought the good fight, but I'm not giving up.
Educating people about the birds is very important to me, because as much as I love and admire birds and watching birds, such as the western sandpipers at Roberts Bank, it's a true spectacle that I should be around for future generations to admire. If we're not doing anything on this issue, they're simply not going to be there. It's going to become lost in myths and legends about the hundreds of western sandpipers that once went around Roberts Bank.